It's 8 p.m. Welcome to the Citi Newsroom. My name is Vivian Lokko.
And I am Umaru, Sanda, Amadu.
Coming up, 5 indigenous banks fall as the Bank of Ghana revokes licenses and creates a new bank called the Consolidated Bank Ghana Limited. We have the details from the fallout of a busy day in the banking sector. President swears in Jane Mensah as chairperson of the Electoral Commission as she promises to build on the work of her predecessor. Also coming up, minority declares renegotiated a merit deal the worst in the history of the country as pressure builds on the government to reconsider the agreement. And later, we have a report from the Central Region on the poor state of the access road to the Kakum National Park. To the details. The Bank of Ghana has consolidated funds. Bank, Construction Bank, Royal Bank, Unibank and Sovereign Bank. This means that the banks are now merged. Now, according to the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, some of the banks obtained their licenses through false means by presenting documents that painted a picture as though they could meet the new capital requirement. Now, the banks have till December 31, 2018 to meet the minimum requirements. Some local banks have appealed for President Akufo-Addo to intervene for a possible extension of the deadline for the banks. But the central bank, among other things, has advised them to join forces and recapitalize or risk having their licenses revoked. There is more in the following report. So
utilization of commercial banks in August last year. Existing banks as well as new entrants are expected to increase their minimum capital from 120 to 400 million cedis, a decision the banks are expected to comply with by December 31, 2018. While the Bank of Ghana licensed 3 banks, i.e. the Construction Bank, the Beige Bank and GHL Bank last year, it collapsed 2 others, UT and Capital Banks, which have since been absorbed by GCB Bank. The move left about 800 jobs off the market, with more expected to join. But it will emerge that this is the beginning of the troubles for the banking industry. Fast forward to 2018 and local banks petitioned President Akufo-Addo for an extension of the December 31 deadline by 4 more years to 2022. Though a committee was formed on this appeal, the outcome of their work is yet to be known. The central bank has on several occasions insisted it will not extend the deadline for the minimum capital. The Bank of Ghana's banking sector reports for May this year put total assets of banks at 97.7 billion cedis as at April this year. Similarly, the bank's paid-up capital, which refers to the amount invested by shareholders, increased from 4.57 to 5.22 billion cedis. The non-performing loans, however, increased to 8.63 billion cedis in April this year from 8.2 billion cedis as at December last year. Even though measures taken by the Bank of Ghana to trim the number of banks in the country could trigger other complications such as job losses running into thousands of people, economist Dr. Ebo Texin maintains the current cost is rather less than the impact in the future.
We should seem to be supporting such initiatives that might come with some costs. In fact, if banks merge and there's a slash down on employment, it meant that some of the banks will even employ much more than they should have. And one thing about these banks that we have is that even their top management, the salaries that some of them receive is way beyond the industry acceptable levels. So you see, people are putting their monies into the banks, and the banks are supposed to lend, and the amount of operating cost alone is part of the reason why some of these banks are in the situation that they have.
Ghanaians have not been let out on the impact of the speculation within the banking industry.
But because of what we are hearing, that some banks can meet the minimum requirements and some banks are kind of going to merge, we don't really know what is happening. And so we are entertaining fear in opening account in any of the banks, the so-called local banks.
Some of the times, some of their customer service may not be good. So it will affect me at the side of customer service. Maybe I don't want that particular bank. Then, you know, in some way it affects us.
But the questions bothering the minds of analysts are whether a country like Ghana, with a population of less than 30 million people, needs 34 banks to operate. at a time where countries like Nigeria and South Africa, with relatively higher population, have fewer banks. Ghana's banking industry will be an interesting space to watch over the next 5 months as the BOG gets tough with its regulations. For Citi News, Pius Amihe Eduku.
So we'll still stay with this story and look further into this big story for today, not just for the banking sector, but the economy as a whole, because of the enormity of the banking industry and its impact on all of us as Ghanaians and worldwide. So I'm going to be joined in the studio by Toma Amihe, is a financial journalist, as well as Samuel Ultri, he's a risk manager, to tell us more about the story. Gentlemen, welcome to the Citi Newsroom.
Thank you.
Interesting day for us in the banking sector. First of all, of course, we knew there were issues to do with the mergers and acquisitions, also the minimal capital talks around putting banks together. But 5 together, did we see this coming? Puma?
I didn't at all. I didn't at all. This one's straight out of left field. The logistics of this thing is going to be an absolute nightmare. I don't know how long Bank of Ghana has been planning this, all right? But it's going to be a very, very difficult thing to pull off. I mean, it makes sense in terms of it's being what they might see as the best way to, protect depositors and ensure that there's still confidence in the banking sector. But for 5 different banks with different corporate cultures to now come together, they've all suffered from weak management, including management, not just, even if you take out the shareholders, the same senior managers will still be in there and continue doing transactions as a going concern, which means that tomorrow morning somebody comes to withdraw money and he can take his money. Somebody's loan repayment, whether interest or principal, falls due tomorrow at some time and they go for the money and ensure the money is being paid. There are letters of credit which are outstanding, 190 days, 180 days, which have not been completed. They're still open. And those things have to go on. 5 different banks, different managements, different corporate cultures, and coming at a time where, in order to justify its action, the Bank of Ghana has pointed out just how bad their financial situations are, just how badly they've been managed, all at the same time, coming together. It's like, we have a situation where you have, imagine, let me analogize everyone understand football. You have, you bring in 5 players together to form a team, and these are all players that have been rejected by other teams because they're not good enough. I wonder what kind of football team you're putting together. As I say, it's a going concern. Tomorrow morning, this bank has to open for business. All right? There are transactions which are halfway through. There are transactions which are about to be done.
Okay, so we'll delve deeper into that, the operations, whether this will work and etc. But Samuel, you this morning were talking about, indigenous banks, the need to merge, and some of the issues we need to look at. Did this come to you as a surprise? 5 banks.
Interestingly, I wasn't surprised. Again, if you've followed the industry quite closely and you've looked at the financial statements and the operations of the banking industry, this was not something you couldn't have predicted. The big question, however, is could you have forecasted that 5 were going to be merged into 1? That perhaps is a surprise. But I would want to say that, and I think this emphasis can never be emphasized enough, there is never a point where we are in a crisis. We've not gotten there yet. We're at the mood where we're reforming, and that is important because tomorrow morning, as he said, business must go on, and the least you want to have is a panic, and the least you want to have is a run on any of these institutions, because that will cause a bigger problem. And so, fundamentally, let's say the biggest change now is that we've consolidated 5 into 1 to give it a bit more clarity and certainty, because before today, all these institutions were insolvent on paper, which basically meant that, yes, they were funding these depositors' funds through other means, mostly through the regulator. And so we were using taxpayers' money to pay depositors. through these banks that were not strong enough, and we need. I guess the regulator had to stop that, and so I personally feel this is important to save the industry, and I hope for the best in terms of operationalization of the consolidation.
Okay, we'll come to the issue about the central bank and its role in all of this, and whether it acted too late or whether this act is right. Tom, I'll come to you, but let's quickly run through all these banks, the 5 banks, and look at exactly what the problem was with each one of them. Let's start with Unibank. Unibank has been in the news for some time now over issues with liquidity, over issues of what it really told the Unibank on issues regards to the bank proper, etc. There's been a number of things the bank has said about it, that's the central bank, with relation to today's issue. Tuma, what are the issues with Unibank and why hasn't it been roped into this big marriage?
Well, Unibank is just the biggest case of a situation which has afflicted, or actually, there's a central theme running through one of them. Unibank seems to be the biggest culprit. Basically, it is poor corporate governance and risk management, which has made the bank, which has put the bank in financial difficulty. And to cover up the thing, the Unibank was not apparently reporting its actual financial situation to the Bank of Ghana. So the situation was getting worse, and the Bank of Ghana thought the situation was getting better, you know, until we got to a stage where it couldn't be hidden anymore. That basically seems to be the problem with Unibank. Basically the same thing as with the other bank, you know, too much connected lending, you know, lending to sibling companies, and because of that, I mean, when you lend to a sibling company, you're not going to do proper risk management, you're not going to do proper due diligence. You've made up your mind that you want to finance a sister company. So you're not really looking at the risk, you're just looking at the fact that the sister company needs the money, and you have it in your vault so you can give it to the sister company. Of course, in Unibank's case, a bit worse in terms of the fact that a large part of the money, I think about 3 billion or so, was actually money given to connected like shareholders, which was not even on their loan books. All right, so it's not recorded as, they're not recorded as loans. They're not any interest. I don't quite understand how you would describe such transfers, whether they were grants or freebies. I don't know how to explain.
If you look at the central bank statement, it says, quote, shareholders, related and connected parties had taken amounts totaling 3.7 billion cedis, which were neither granted through the normal credit delivery process nor reported as part of the bank's loan portfolio. In addition, amounts totaling 1.6 billion cedis had been granted to shareholders, related and connected parties in the form of loans and advances without due process and in breach of relevant provisions of Act 930. Altogether, the shareholders, related and connected parties of Unibank, an amount of 5.3 billion cedis from the bank, constituting 75% of total assets of the bank, was moved around. So, but let's move away from Unibank. Samuel, you want to say something about Unibank?
Yes, I think it's important we understand the two issues. It had been given to administratorship for a while, and so there had been a process to salvage it, as you would esteem. But then the report from the BOG today says that it's basically something that is beyond rehabilitation. And those were the exact words. To say something is beyond rehabilitation means perhaps it's something you cannot salvage. Now, the figures as you gave speaks to why, but for the ordinary Ghanaian, what does it mean? It basically means that there are limits to which any company can lend, which we call intercompany lending. And so you can lend a certain percentage of your total asset to a sister company. But as we're told, about 3.7 billion was not reported. Now, the big question is that basic accounting, your liabilities plus your capital must match your assets. And so the fact that you have an asset that is not reported means that 3.7 billion of people's deposits perhaps has gone somewhere we're yet to figure out. And so that for me was significant. That finding is a stream, and I guess it lets us to finding a bit more with them. It goes on to say that about 1.6 billion were shareholder related deals. it speaks to the broader issue of corporate governance, but clearly, I guess the understanding of corporate governance is key to Unibank.
Okay, let's move quickly because our time is running out. The three other banks, Sovereign Bank, Construction Bank, and Beige Bank, we're being told they got their licenses through fraudulent means. This should be worrying, especially when the Bank of Ghana was actually approved those licenses in the first place.
Now, Vivian, that is the big mystery. How do you start a bank when you have a minimum capital requirement of 120 million and you don't have the money, and somehow you're able to deceive the central bank that you have the money and you start the bank? I don't understand how on earth this thing has happened. It totally mystifies me, because I mean, money is money. How do you deceive the central bank that you have withdrawn 20 million when you don't have it?
And how come the central bank didn't do its checks to know this? This is not a one way; it's a two way, isn't it?
Yes, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by the whole thing. How come the central bank did not know that it didn't have the money? I don't, for the life of me, it's totally beyond me. If I tell you, if I try to analyze this for your viewers, I'll just be lying, because it is. I just don't get it.
Right. This consolidation, we would have to rush with this consolidation. How is it going to work, Samuel?
Okay, so our initial understanding about operationalization is that there's a consolidated Bank of Ghana created with an appointed managing director, and several directors for each of the companies. And so, as the governor said, what it means is that these 5 banks, Unibank, Beige, Royal, Sovereign, Construction, cease, just like the UT Bank ceases to exist, and then their good assets would be transferred to this new entity with a pledge of a new capital. So it's just like you're starting a new company with 450 million from the government to say start a new company with 450. But for all the depositors who were with these 5 companies, after the consolidation, the operations is consolidated. Now you can walk to any of them and get your money. There's no dispute about that until we can align all the systems and have all the branches integrated into one system. But as it stands now, there's one entity, which is the Consolidated Bank of Ghana Limited, and these 5 banks cease to exist as all their liabilities and assets has been transferred in law to this new entity.
Okay. We need to explain that what Sam has just said is something we need to emphasize. This is not a merger.
Okay.
It's not a merger. 5 banks ceased to exist, just like UT and Capital. And a new entity has been created out of the things on their balance sheet.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's not a merger in any way.
Okay.
An entirely new bank has been created using all the liabilities and some of the assets.
Okay.
And the financing gap is being covered by government through the issuance of bonds.
Okay. Cost implications to the government and to us as citizens of this consolidation.
I guess 5.6 billion in bonds is the cost we're made to know, the initial cost. Aside the social risks of people losing their jobs and the consequences to people they feed and things like that. But the initial cost to the taxpayer is clearly the 5.6 billion we're told in bonds. And so once a bond is issued, clearly it's you and I who pay for it. And so the cost of this is actually estimated at 5.7, excluding all the other social risks, because yes, immediately people might not lose their jobs, but consolidation means that most likely would have 5 of each of the roles, most likely, because each one of the banks may have had a certain role. And so we're yet to see what it happens, but there are probably more non-financial costs, but the financial costs we can estimate at 5.6 billion, but there clearly are bigger consequences than we can put money to.
Okay, we'll have to end here, but I'm going to ask a final question to the two of you. What will be the future of the banking industry with this happening and other issues around the minimum capital? 30 seconds each on that.
Indigenous participation is getting very close to death. We desperately need to support the ones that are left, the ones that are a bit older and don't have such severe corporate governance issues. We need to support them to ensure that they do it the 400 million thing on deadline. So banks like Cow, like Fidelity, like Prudential. If not, I mean, you're going to have a very bad situation. Before these problems started, indigenous banks had a 40% market share. And the way things are going, if you add it to the merger of GM Bank, Heritage Bank, and there's another one, there are 3 of them, Sahel. Basically, 8 banks have become 2. All right. And if you don't support the ones that are left, you're going to have a situation where you have less than 5 indigenous banks. I wouldn't want to bore people with the obvious implications of that in terms of financial inclusion based on the spread of branches and even the willingness to support small site local enterprises.
I would basically say resilient. I think we'll build a more resilient industry. Yes, the costs are hard. Yes, the implications are tough. But I think that we need a more resilient industry. And so we'll build a resilient industry with a bit more diversity and would have a bit more stronger capital adequacies and perhaps a bit more professionalism in the industry. So these are anticipations and hopes for the future.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Samuel Autry, a risk manager, and Toma Amir, a financial journalist. And I'm Vivian Lokko. We'll be right back.
Tune in to The Point of View, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. as Bernard Avlet takes the news further. He will bring the right guests, ask them the relevant questions, and get you the real insights you need on the big stories for the day. The Point of View with Bernard Avlet, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on Citi TV.
We spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation.
Because we're giving only those in their 3rd trimester. So in the next 3 months, those in their 2nd would be ready to receive the kits. And we're taking data at registration, which is before they take the kits, at delivery and post-delivery, so that we can analyze and we'll see the numbers. So from the numbers and the data that we're collecting, we would know what has worked, what hasn't worked,
Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Join us for Breakfast Daily, only on Citi TV.
You're welcome back to the Citi Newsroom on Citi TV. I am Umaru, Sanda, Amadu. Now, the minority in Parliament is asking government to immediately suspend the Ameri Novation Agreement. According to former Deputy Minister for Power, John Jinapo, who spoke on behalf of the minority, the agreement is the worst ever power deal tabled before the country's legislature. He contends it's not justified for government to push for a deal that would cost over $1 billion when with the payment of $225 million in 2.5 years, the Ameri plant would have become the property of the state. My colleague Duke Mensah Opoku has more in this full report.
The latest Novation and Amendment Agreement of the Ameri deal has been met with criticism by civil society groups and the minority for failing to meet certain legal, financial and value for money requirements. The innovation agreement is introduced by government to Parliament, if approved, would allow a third party, Miscellaneous International, take over the operation of the Ameri plant for the next 15 years while Ameri is settled with the outstanding debt government owes it. Addressing the media in Parliament, the minority caucus called for the immediate suspension of the agreement. John Jinapo is MP for Yape Kusol and former Deputy Power Ministers.
We therefore find it scandalous the attempt by President Akufo-Addo to introduce a third party known as Miscellaneous International Trading Company to assume ownership of the power plant at a proposed capacity charge of 3.8 US cents per kilowatt hour for 15 good years. When you translate this over the 15-year period, we'll be paying $1.035 billion US when we are left with just 2.5 years to pay $255 million spread over the 2.5 years, and then we own the plant. And so the question is that do you prefer to pay $255 million over 2.5 years and own the plant, or give the plant out? The person will own it for another 15 years, but you end up paying more than $1 billion United States dollars. If you convert it, you are talking of almost 5 billion Ghana cedis. President Akufo-Addo must be personally held liable and responsible for this scandal. The Minister of Energy couldn't have come here without approval from the President. And the President couldn't have given approval if he did not look into this. It therefore sums up that the President is very comfortable with this deal.
According to Deputy Minority Chief Whip Ahmed Ibrahim, even some members of the majority are against the Ameri Innovation Agreement and may join the minority to vote against it if government tries to railroad the agreement through Parliament.
NDC 106 numbers that is kicking against this deal. And therefore your question that they have the numbers and they will try to force it through. There are still good ones in the MPP. I'm a deputy whip. Most of them saw me that asked for this over our dead body. There are some righteous members of Parliament who are still seeking the interest of the country. So don't think it is only 106. We are talking of national interest. And that is why I thought that what belongs to the nation is what somebody is taking away. However, what they are saying is that we should go for a secret ballot. We will, assuming we go for secret ballot, we are 106. Then it turned out that 107 against and 1684. Will you believe that it was the NDC member who voted against it? On this one, we have gone past the era of hypocrisy and sycophancy.
John Jinapo also alleges that government had renegotiated the car power agreement under a very bad new arrangement that had already been rejected by the ECG board.
We wish to also bring to your attention yet another scandalous and corruption-ridden agreement being renegotiated by this same energy ministry under the 450 car powership agreement. This renegotiated agreement is even worse than the Ameri Innovation Agreement presented to Parliament by Mr. Boachi Ajako. Indeed, the renegotiated car power agreement stinks to the heavens, with big fishes in government superintending the looting of the state under this new deal. I am not surprised that the ECG board has declined to approve this deal. Because what they have done is to double the tenor. Anytime you double the tenor of a PPA, the rule of thumb is that the capacity charge drops to between 30 and 40%. What this government has done is to renegotiate the deal, double the tenor, and giving us a minimal reduction of about 8%.
So the Ameri deal and its never-ending controversy seems not to go away. Today, the minority is raising further arguments as to why government should suspend the deal and not go ahead with it. But will government heed the call and the advice of the minority, or they would just use the sheer numbers that they have in the House to pass this deal when Parliament resumes from recess? For Citi News from the Princess of Parliament, I am Duke Menton Opoku.
Now, the Kakum National Park, one of the country's major tourist attractions in the central region, has called on the government to, as a matter of urgency, fix access roads to the park. The Cape Coast to Trifopraso Road network is causing the tourist site to lose millions of cedis in revenue due to drop in tourist numbers. Citi News' Philip Nilati has more.
Visitors to the Kakum National Park are getting increasingly frustrated by the poor state of the road leading to the site. The uncompleted part of the Cape Coast Trifopraso Road is one of the cocoa roads under construction, while the first 20 kilometers of the road from Abra to Frame has been tarred. The remaining stretch spanning from Frame to the Kakum National Park, a distance of about 6 kilometers, is yet to be developed. This leaves commuters, particularly tourists, to the park no option than to bear the brunt of a bumpy ride.
This is my second visit to Kakum. My first visit was about 20 years ago. It's a shame because the road on the journey here from Amadu was good, but then the last part of the road was just too bad. It ruined the journey. I think it would affect people coming. It's not as appealing when the road is bad and they're not sure where they are going. Kakum is a very good tourist spot.
When you're coming, the road is untarred. It's untarred and anything at all can happen.
The partial reconstruction of the 30-kilometer stretch from the Abra area in the Cape Coast metropolis to the Kakum National Park in the Trifo Heman Lower Dentra district has slowed due to a directive from the Ghana Cocoa Board in June 2017 halting all cocoa road projects. Isaac Asuma is the facility manager of the Kakum National Park, and he tells me how the bad vote is affecting operations of the tourist site.
It's so deadly, it's devastating. I use the road every morning coming to work and I get so stressed, and every day someone is asking me about why is your road so terrible. It's also had a very tremendous impact on our visitation. In March, ideally we get lots of children coming to Kakum, but this year the case was different. Why? Because those who came and saw that the road was so bad, they wouldn't want to, stress their kids and students and things like that. So this is so terrible for me. The nature of the road, it breaks my heart. Actually, if you ask me how soon I want it to be done, I wish some magic could be done for it to be fixed right now. And it's not like the government can't. They've been able to do it all the way, and it's just left with about 6 kilometers, to this place. So I don't even know why this is a huge problem that we need to talk about every day.
Motorists who use the road say the entire road network has become extremely terrible. According to them, the numerous potholes on the road to the Kakum National Park causes frequent breakdown of their vehicles.
Ghana for Fuskala Wajibo Kwanda, Kakum National Park, the way all fetchment of moments come. Never quiet to the middle. Oh, my own there, pay for 1 year. No, I can't win a wire. What to a man when there, wire. What to a baby, new government be now. We just didn't see us ever kind of almost hang a crap. No, my bread, near for how complacent. The one young boy, young baby, and 4 young Kakuna Shafaka, no one young can. Was a high cut every day, scout young one. Yes, cover.
It's well, the bus get fault. There was some maintenance and it's so expensive. It's more expensive, so we have to beg government to come to do the road for us.
For Citi News, Philip Ni Latte.
Now, the Ghana Water Company says it would demolish buildings that are constructed on pipelines as part of strategy to resolve water shortage problems.
Now, on a tour of Adabraka, which has been without water for a month, the communications officer of the company, Stanley Mate, revealed that the company was doing its best to restore regular supply to the area.
Following complaints from residents of Adabraka and its environs over the scarcity of water in the area, the Ghana Water Company Limited has embarked on a tour of the community to ascertain the cause of the problem. For close to a month, water has not been flowing through the taps in the community. In order to lessen the burdens of residents, the water company contracted some water tanker drivers to supply them with water on a daily basis. The company has identified some blockage in its pipes as a result of illegal building on the pipes. Upon further search, the company found that the Paloma Hotel, situated close to Circle, had built on its pipeline, causing the blockage. The communications officer of the GWCL, Stanley Mate, however, said those pipes were old and needed to be replaced.
We have been doing troubleshooting to locate the exact area where the area which is causing the problem. We realized that one of the areas is this stretch that we see here, about 600 meters from here. We see mansions built on the pipelines. Now, these mansions, the weight of these mansions impact on the old pipelines because this area is an old community. So we've had to demolish these buildings. Now, we want to add some human face to it because these are very expensive buildings. So what we have done is to rather invest into relocating the pipeline. Now, we've also decided on the relocation because the pipelines are already old. So why do you demolish new buildings because of an old pipeline? So we are going to relocate the pipeline. We're going to lay new lines. We can all see the new pipelines that we have here. These are HDPE pipelines. They're current and very modern, and to withstand the test of time.
Work has also begun on the major valves that supply water to the community to increase the pressure of the water. The company has therefore promised to work 24 hours a week in order to restore regular flow of water to residents, which it hopes to achieve in a week's time.
Now, when this whole job is completed, now we are getting more water into the central district from several sources. So there will be much more improvement than hitherto it was. I want to use this opportunity to also apologize to the people of Adabraka and surrounding communities for the inconveniences that this situation has caused them. As we apologize, we also wish that they also support the GWCL to serve them well. We also wish that there will be watchdogs of their community so that when people are doing the wrong things, they stop them from doing them. Then the situation will no longer occur.
But in the interim, they will have to make do with water from the tanker drivers. Reporting for Citi News, I'm Shirley Ziwu.
Now, the Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department, DCOP, Mami Tiwado Dankwa, has called on corporate organizations to make cybersecurity a major priority in their operations. She made these comments on the back of the recent arrest by an outfit of 12 suspects in the biggest ever cybercrime bust in recent history. The suspects had attempted transferring 326 million cedis from Universal Merchant Bank electronically. There's more in this report.
Speaking at the 2018 Annual Internal Audit Conference on the theme Leadership and Good Corporate Governance, the Director General of the Criminal Investigation Department, CID, DCOP Mami Tiwado Dankwa, emphasized that cybersecurity must be given the needed attention it deserves by senior management. She further added that control measures must also be put in place to limit access to systems within an institution.
Cybersecurity, a boardroom priority. When board members meet, when they discuss issues, strategies, if we'll be very honest, how many of us will have cybersecurity as part of the discussions that we have? But one cyber attack can break the whole organization now, because when we had this 326 million, the question I asked myself was, these people wanted to close down the bank, and it is possible it can happen to anybody. So in every organization, there's the need to put cybersecurity. People say they have cybersecurity, but in actual fact, every cybersecurity should have something that you can say that if I have this, then I have good cybersecurity in place. The first thing that I want to talk about is confidentiality. In every organization, when you want to put cybersecurity in place, it should be need to know basis. If If people are not supposed to have access to certain area and certain information, you have to restrict the access. But most of the time when we have people on internship, national service people who are not even permanent staff of the organization, we grant them access. We don't control where they can go to or where they cannot go to. And then we expose that. So you need to put in place a system that will restrict people having certain access to certain data or information. If the person is not supposed to do that, then the system should check that, no, before you can move from this area to this area, you need authorization. And once you do that, it helps to reduce the cyber security threat that we have.
Now, Mrs. Mary Chenry Hesse has been inducted into office as the 10th Chancellor of the University of Ghana. She succeeds former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, who has been Chancellor since 2008. Mrs. Chenry Hesse is, however, the first female Chancellor in the history of the Premier University of Ghana to be the Chancellor. There is more in the following report.
Mrs. Chenry Hesse is indeed a woman of first. The first African woman to attain a position of Under-Secretary General in the history of the United Nations, first ever African woman resident coordinator of the UN systems and resident representative of the United Nations Development Programme, and the first African woman to receive with distinction the prestigious Guzi Peace Prize for International Diplomacy and Humanitarianism. Chairman of the University of Ghana Council, Professor Yao Chumesi, could not have better summed her up.
I'm immensely proud to be associated with such an eminent citizen and daughter of this country as Mrs. Chenry Hesse. The word eminent or distinguished tends to be used rather loosely and thus lacking in precision. But it is an appropriate word to use in describing Mrs. Chenry Hesse's achievements. For wherever she has been and wherever she has worked, she has stood above others. She always has had a commanding presence. In her academic career, the Ghana Civil Service, the Ghana Civil and Public Services, the UNDP or United Nations Development Programme, and the United Nations System.
And a lot is expected of her.
Vision, experience, expertise, and contacts. These are things that I believe will be very useful, and really above all, commitment to higher education, commitment to Ghana, and commitment to Africa.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Now, she's got lots of experience, liberal-minded, you know, lots and lots of international experience, and I think that I've been harassing her about IT and how the modern technology and the way forward is not really connected to our educational system in Ghana. So I think finally she'll get a chance to implement some of the things I've been able to explain to her. I mean, the distance learning and some of the e-learning things.
This background probably informs her vision for the university.
Well, a lot of experience from the School of Life. You could see from my CV, I've really been around and I have gathered so much information. So I'm going to put everything at the disposal of the university and make sure that it will remain the best institution, not only in Ghana, not only in West Africa, not only in Africa, but everywhere. The brightest jewel in the crown of tertiary education on the continent of Africa. That's what we are going to work for.
Speaking at the ceremony, President Akufo-Addo charged the university to adequately prepare to absorb the first products of the free senior high school policy.
One of the most important immediate challenges which will confront this university and others will be the dramatically increased population of students who will be seeking admission in some 2 years as a result of the free senior high school policy. I urge you, Madam Chancellor, and all heads of our tertiary institutions to begin making adequate preparations towards this and future years. The free senior high school policy will be a permanent feature of our educational architecture.
From the University of Ghana here in Accra, I am Sixtus Dong Ulo, reporting for Citi News.
And still in Women in Office, and President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has sworn in Mrs. Jane Mensah as the new chairperson of the Electoral Commission during a ceremony at the Jubilee House. Mrs. Mensah replaces Mrs. Charlotte Osei, who was fired by the president after she was found guilty of incompetence and stated misbehavior by a committee. Speaking at the swearing-in ceremony, President Akufo-Addo charged the new EC boss and her deputies to work hard to deliver on their mandate.
Do in the name of the Almighty God swear. Do in the name of the Almighty God swear. That I will not directly or indirectly. That I will not directly or indirectly. Our only interest is to have an electoral commission that organizes credible, transparent elections. We do not want electoral victories handed to us by officials of the Electoral Commission. We want electoral victories handed to us by the people of Ghana. You, Madam Chair, and your two deputies have come to office at a time when there's considerable anxiety in the nation about the work of the Commission. It is the quality of your work that will reassure the Ghanaian people that the democratic system of government that they have chosen for their governance will be properly nurtured by an electoral system that allows their voice to be plainly and loudly heard. It is no secret that I have spent much of my adult life fighting for the establishment of democracy and human rights in this country. And I have always fought for and advocated for a credible electoral process in Ghana. In emphasizing the importance and credibility of elections, it must be pointed out that the count, the collation, the declaration of results cannot and should not be more important than the sacred God-given right of a citizen casting his or her ballot. I have said it before, and I'll repeat it. Elections are about those who cast the vote, not those who count, not those who supervise, not those who transmit, and not those who declare. The heart of the democratic process is giving effect to the choices made by those who cast the vote. The four persons I have sworn in a few minutes ago as chairperson, deputy chairpersons, and member of the Electoral Commission are persons I am confident will bring integrity, professionalism, and independence and fairness of mind to the discharge of their duty.
You're still watching the Citi Newsroom. My name is Vivian Lokko. Tonight I'm here with
Umaru, Sanda, Amadu.
There's more stories when we come back.
For regular news checks as they unfold. 2020 news, all day, all the time. Politics, sports, entertainment, business, and more. 2020 news. We bring you the world in 20 minutes.
And that's all the news in 20 minutes.
Every Thursday night on Citi TV, you're welcome to join women from different backgrounds and opinions as they weigh in on your relationship issues. Watch Sister Sister as the ladies get real with issues about love, marriage, betrayal, sex, dating, trust, finances, and more. Join Jessica and her sisters for City TV's all-women talk show, Sister Sister, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Also, live on 97.3 City FM.
You're welcome back. Now, the Ghana Bauxite Company will not be granted a permit to mine in the Bobakri and Afumba reserves of the Western region, according to the Lands and Natural Resources Minister, John Pierre Amewu. The company is currently in talks with the ministry to extend its operations to these areas, even though it has been operating at a loss since 2010. But Mr. Amewu disclosed this during a tour of the Awaso Bauxite Company in the Western region today.
2015, there was some declaration of profit. 2016, we yet study your books, but law 2017, we haven't got your books yet. But the law, which is the lease agreement you have, states clearly that in case of transfer pricing or dealings with an affiliate relationship, there must be some clear form of understanding between your outfits and then the ministry regarding the person you sign your sales and purchase agreement to buy the bauxite. Now it is clear that this company belongs to you. It's your mother company or sister company. And the prices at which you sold all this bauxite over the period were not the prevailing market price. The law even says that there must be fair and equitable. There will be shortchanged for this time. I'm not here to teach you what is right. But as a government and also as a minister with my team, we have not been very happy for your operations over this time. I'm waiting for your 2017 financial statement, and we're going to advise ourselves. There are clear mandates in terms of what to do, both the company and then also the government, in terms of termination clauses or cancellations of this. They are clear. But your behavior clearly is not in the interest of Ghanaian public. And if for some reasons you will continue to operate this way, then of course I'm afraid government will have to advise itself. It's also interesting and it news to me that you have even applied for some other permits. I mean, what is the justification? Why do you want to apply for permit increase production when you are making losses? What kind of business is that? I mean, what is driving you to increase production? Where we're sitting currently is a year. You start putting in necessary permit. Of course, that I can tell you will not be granted. I'm going to be frank with you. Maybe this is not the right forum, but I have to tell you, you would not get that. Because there's no motivations for government to keep encouraging you when you are running losses.
Now, government's directive that vehicle owners will pay levies for vehicles with engine capacities above 3.0 took effect today. The Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, that's the DVLA, is the mandated entity collecting those levies. According to government, this is to generate alternative revenue for national development. Citi News' Marifans Fojo visited one of the DVLA offices in the capital, Accra, earlier today and has his report.
In presenting the 2018 Mid-Year Budget Review, Finance Minister Ken Oforiatta noted that effective today, August 1, 2018, vehicles with engine capacity above 3.0 will be levied. At the DVLA office at 37 in Accra, it was business as usual. The authority has been mandated by the Ghana Revenue Authority to collect these levies. About 3 p.m. when I was leaving the check-in bay, the first place to go to start vehicle registration processes, very few luxury vehicles showed up, the owners of which were unready to speak to me. But a document made available by the Ghana Revenue Authority provides a breakdown of the levies certain categories of vehicles will incur per their engine capacities. Vehicles with engine capacity between 2.9 and 3.0 will pay 1,000 Ghana cedis, while those with engine capacity between 3.5 and 4.0 will pay 1,500 Ghana cedis. Any vehicle with engine capacity above 4.0 will be levied an amount of 2,000 Ghana cedis. These levies will be paid annually, in addition to other charges like roadworthy. The following categories of vehicles are exempted from the levy: tractors, ambulances, commercial vehicles that have the capacity to transport more than 10 persons, commercial vehicles for the transport of goods, and other exemptions as may be prescribed by the minister responsible for finance. Vehicle owners who have already renewed their roadworthiness certificates prior to the passage of this law can only jubilate for so long, as they will still pay these levies on their next renewal in 2019. Marie-France Fojo, Citi News.
Vivian, I saw your car there, two of them.
Oh, go on.
That was a 7.0 liter engine car. I think that was your car.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment means yes.
No,
it's
it means a
two
big
cars.
no.
She took 2 cars for registration today, like Marie said.
Well, that's it, Sanda, for today's edition of the Citi Newsroom. My name is Vivian Lokko.
And I am Umaru Sanda Amadu.
Visit citinewsroom.com for more stories.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time. Good night.
It's engaging, detailed, and loaded with factual and